Hey everybody, this is Joshua Doherty, aka Joshua Lloyd Fox. I'm gonna kind of rewind a little bit here and get off the war in Iran and what's going on, even though if you watched the press conference with Marco Rubio yesterday and you're not seeing the manipulation and the lies and the craziness and the narcissism that's going on, that we are attacking Iran now because they've closed an international waterway. They closed it in response to us bombing them and killing their daughters. And we're like, now they're pirates and they're criminals, and we got to go in there and save the globe, save the world from a situation we created. That's narcissism 101 on a large global scale. And these very intelligent people like Marco Rubio has bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And I'm going to segue into that, into another person who had drank the Kool-Aid hook, line, and sinker. Hold on. I'm not sponsored by Coconut Dr. Pepper, but if they want to send me some money for it, I'll put it in my video every day. I love that stuff. Okay, I'm going to read something here, just a little bit of levity, because I'm in a serious headspace because of what I've just listened to all morning. If you haven't seen this speech by Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you don't know who that is, she's an ex-congresswoman who was like MAGA general. Was on stage with Donald Trump all the way back in his first presidential campaign. She was like, this is God incarnate, Donald Trump, right? And then she got into Congress in this session and started seeing some of this stuff coming across from her own people, her support, Republicans and stuff, that's against everything they campaigned on. And come to find out, she actually meant the stuff she said. And now that none of that was happening and everything was going to foreign interest and stuff, she raised the kind of bullshit flag, started voting against the Republicans, siding with the Democrats, and Trump destroyed her completely with a Truth Social tweet, or whatever you call it, post, about how she's a traitor, and she started getting death threats and everything. So I'm going to link the whole speech in my comments. However, I want to read a part of her speech, word for word, what she said. Because we've talked about the Epstein Files and the problem with the entire system. Both sides, both parties, two-party system. Tear it down, right? But she's an insider. She was a MAGA general. She was in all those rooms in those meetings and strategy planning, and then in Congress getting and seeing the bills come across the table and stuff. So I want to read this. It's a few pages long, so bear with me. But this is her speaking to a group at the Ron Paul Institute of non-party affiliated futurists about where the world's going. Okay, so let me just read this to you. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking last night at the Ron Paul Institute about the Epstein Files. So wow, when we started talking about releasing the Epstein Files, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. President Trump will just roll them out on a big cart himself, stacks and stacks and stacks of the Epstein Files, because obviously Bill Clinton is all in there and Hillary Clinton. That's what I had been told all along, right? Well, it was the most shocking thing when I sat in a conference meeting and I learned that the president didn't want to release the Epstein Files. I was like, what? Yeah, come to find out, he was very much against it. So we kept on trying and kept it on talking about it. And then the president told Mike Johnson, no, do not bring that resolution to the floor for a vote. He told the Rules Committee, and Johnson told the Rules Committee, no, you will not mark up any bill in the Rules Committee that will allow the Epstein Files to be released. Guys, this is whistleblowing 101, by the way. And the resistance built and built and built. He told Pam Bondi, don't release the Epstein Files. He told everybody, don't release the Epstein Files. So we persisted because that's what we promised. That's what we campaigned on, transparency and accountability. Facts. Especially to pedophiles. How is that complicated? So it got to be such a gigantic amount of resistance coming from the president and the speaker and everyone. The DOJ, I said, fine, I'll do the unthinkable. I'll go over there and I'll sign my name on a discharge petition that all the Democrats are signing their name on. Talk about crossing the aisle. Me, a general in the MAGA army, crossing over to sign my name with a bunch of Democrats. Yeah, I did. because women were raped when they were 16 and 14 years old, and he was a convicted pedophile. And we knew there were many with him, so I signed my name on the discharge petition. Oh, did I get my name on the naughty list then? Let me tell you, that became a real issue at the White House, right? Well, I'll never forget it. I was in my office in the Rayburn building, and I got a phone call from the president, and he was at the White House, and he wanted to talk to me about the discharge petition that I'd signed my name on. And he said, Majorie, you're going to have to take your name off that discharge petition. We can't let, this is a hoax. We can't carry this. This is a hoax. It's a Democrat hoax. And we've got to just put this away and stop doing this. And he said, my friends are going to get hurt. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. He's telling Marjorie Taylor Greene in the White House to take her name off of a release petition for the Epstein Files, unredacted. And he said, it's a Democrat hoax. And we've just got to put this away and stop doing this. And he said, my friends are going to get hurt. He said his friends would get hurt if we release the Epstein Files. He said, Majorie, these are good people. These are people you know at Mar-a-Lago, people in Palm Beach. They're going to get hurt by this. And I said, Mr. President, people have been hurt. These women have been hurt. I said, have you talked to them? I said, you should talk to them. You should have them in the Oval Office, Mr. President. You have everybody in the Oval Office. You have sports teams. You have world leaders. You have Al-Qaeda terrorists that are now leading Syria. We're going to talk about that soon, though, guys. I got a truth social bomb, a truth social dropped on my head like a nuclear bomb when the president called me a traitor. And I read that and I thought, a traitor? Oh my gosh. I looked up the definition of traitor. I looked it up. I was like, I have to wrap my head around this. And so a traitor is a traitor to the United States of America. And I swore an oath to defend our Constitution. I really thought about it. I said, he's not talking about what we think of the definition of traitor. He's saying I was a traitor to him. To him. And that's why I was a traitor to him. But I was a traitor doing what we promised to do. I was the traitor. But no one defended me, not one person. And I said, oh my goodness, how can I continue to serve under this president and serve in a body of Congress where not a single person is willing to say, Mr. President, Marjorie's not a traitor. She helped you get elected. But then guess what happened? I started getting death threats, and it was about me being called a traitor. It was, you're a traitor, you deserve to die, you're a traitor, we're going to kill you, you're a traitor. But it was the one that came in, and they kept coming on my son, my youngest, my baby boy. We're going to snuff out his life. We're going to put a bullet in his head. Marjorie Traitor Greene. So I sent those to the president, texted him directly. I also sent them to Susie Wiles and James Blair, and I also sent them to the vice president, J.D. Vance, and Kash Patel, head of the FBI. I sent them to all these people. I got no response from Susie Wiles, none. And she's a mother and a grandmother and a woman. I got no response from James Blair because he only cares about making money on campaigns. I did hear from Kash Patel. He said on it, but I haven't heard from him since. I don't know what he's on. J.D. Vance was very nice to me, compassionate and kind, and reassured me that he would do everything we could to find out what's going on. And then I heard back from Donald Trump. And I've saved those text messages. I'd probably get put in jail if I released them publicly, but I saved them, where Donald Trump proceeded to tell me that it was my fault and that I deserve it. If my son gets killed, I deserve it because I was a traitor to him. That is our president of the United States. That's the man that says MAGA is whatever he wants it to be. Wow. Word for word, what she spoke about in this speech. Again, I'm going to link it in the comments. So here's a woman, his almost right-hand man on the campaign trail. And we're talking about Donald Trump, head of MAGA, an entire political machine. People making money hand over fist, selling propaganda and T-shirts and pajamas and coffee cups. And the whole premise of Make America Great Again should actually just be renamed Make Trump or Make Trump's Family Great Again. Because that's literally the only people benefiting from Trump being in office is him and his family and foreign leaders. You know, and I've read and seen things about the gold credit card that he was trying to sell to world leaders for $5 million. Some of his people came out and said, I sold 1,000 in one day. Reuters did a study just a couple of days ago that said they sold one, and they didn't sell it for $5 million. They sold it for $1 million because nobody wants to pay big money to come into this country. We're a failing superpower, and nobody wants to admit it. We're just going to ride this dump truck fire, trash can on fire country into the ground, right? And we're going to make as much money from it as we can on the way out. So I have a whistleblower now going around giving speeches like, you know, Charlie Kirk spoke against war and how Israel had control and power over this government. Now she is. Let's hope she doesn't get taken out. Also did a deep dive into that attempted assassination that I said in a previous video. It could have been real, but I have watched now all the breakdowns of the videos, and I believe 100% this is all put on. This administration is all show. They're all words. And that's what you do with narcissistic and manipulative tactics is, you know, you create a situation for whatever reason. You tell the whole world that the situation was created for X, Y, and Z. And then you go in and you fail at achieving what you said you were because you're a paper tiger. You're just all words. And so you have to continue the manipulation and the lies. And what you do is you start using other people's resources, other people's lives, other people's sanity as the currency to continue the manipulation and the lie. And that's what we're seeing happening in Iran. Luckily, unlike Venezuela and Cuba, luckily, Iran had the wherewithal to know what was coming and to stand up in the face of this great and mighty United States military, of which I proudly served more than almost three decades. And now you're seeing the truth come to light as it always does. And what does it mean for the future? Like, are we so far past a point of no return that we cannot redeem this country? We don't know, but we do know it's probably not going to be the people who created the problem that's going to fix it. It's not going to be the boomers and even my generation, but as she says in that speech later on, it's the late millennials and the Gen Z that's going to fix this, because they can't buy a house. They don't have I think she said like 26 million people in this country can't afford health care. Those 26 million people are going to fund the next socialist political proponent, and they're going to become president running only on Medicaid for all. And she says that in this speech too. It's a good speech. I recommend it. It's about a half an hour long, but you should listen to it, because not only will it give you insight on what's going on in the current administration, it should give you a bit of a pucker factor for what's coming in the future, because we've borrowed against a future that they're going to have to pay for. And Social Security is going to be gone, insolvent in 6 years. And the only thing I think that's going to save or redeem anything here, according to the wizard behind the curtain, is this war. A world war. Reset everything. Millions of lives lost. New social and political programs having to come in, just as it happened after World War II. Demarcation lines, DMZs, boundaries, borders, all changed because of a global conflict. You know, in nature, a raging forest fire looks horrible. But what it's actually doing is clearing away the old and the dead, the dying, for new growth to come through. And if you study earth science at all, you understand that sometimes a raging inferno that takes out everything is necessary for the continuation and survival of the whole. I'm not saying that's a good thing. Trust me. I got sons that could be conscripted and drafted. I served my time. My body is not what it should be because of it. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm saying those who voted this kind of administration in twice, or kind of let this door be opened all the way for this kind of stuff to go through, and they drank the Kool-Aid and they believe the manipulation, they still believe the lies. They put us in this situation, and we're all going to have to pay for it. I don't know what's coming next. I hope they do release the Epstein Files. I hope Donald Trump is prosecuted and, as he wants, publicly executed. He wants that, by the way, if you look into it. They've put in a speed lane for capital punishment. I did a video on it. Publicly execute him and take his newfound doubled and tripled net worth and give it to the victims. Equal shares. However many victims there are, thousands of victims, how much would they each get? And I think his current net worth is somewhere just south of $7 billion. Divide up $7 billion by a few thousand. They deserve it. Anyway, go watch the video. More to come on the world stage, but if we take our eyes off of the Epstein Files, then we are just as complicit and guilty as the people who voted a pedophile into the White House. Until next time, love you all. Thank you for everything. Joshua Lloyd Fox, over and out.